Good evening. Today's daf is daf Nun Hey. We're going to Mirz Hashem finish Perek Shorsh Nagach Esapora. Let us begin. We're holding Shol Rabbi Chanina ben Ogil. The second to last line by the two das. Shol Rabbi Chanina ben Ogil. Got it? Yeah. Okay. Shol Rabbi Chanina ben Ogil as Rabbi Chia bar Abba. So Rabbi Chanina ben Ogil asked Rabbi Chia bar Abba. He said, "Mipnei ma b'dibros harishonos le'nemer bahem teiv, u'b'dibros ha'achronos nemer bahem teiv." So he asked him like this: why is it that the Aseres HaDibros is twice written in the Torah, Parshas Yisrei and in Parshas in Devarim? Now, it says, "Kabel savicha v'asimecha leman yarichun yamecha uleman yitav loch al ha'adama." That's what it says twice. It says about honor your father and mother in the Torah, but the second time in Devarim, when it repeats about respecting your father and mother, the Torah says, "Why leman yarichun yamecha leman yitav loch." So why does the Torah use the expression? Why does the Torah give an expression of teiv? Why not say the first time? So Amar Lai. So what happened so now he says, Rabbi Chia bar Abba tells Rabbi Chanina, "Asha'ato she'eleni lama nemer ben teiv." Instead of asking me why it says teiv in the Dibros Achronos, sha'alani im nemer ben teiv im lav. Ask me b'chlal if it says teiv or not. Sheni yidei im nemer ben teiv im lav. I don't know if it says teiv or not. I'm not such a bucky. Klach itzor Reb Tanchum ben Chanilai. Go to this guy Tanchum ben Chanilai. Shayroga itzor Reb Yeshua ben Levi Shaybaki b'Agoda. He was fluent. He was by Yeshua ben Levi, and he was a bucky in Agoda. And maybe he'll have an answer to your question. So Ozer Lagabe. So Reb Chanina went to this Chanina ben. So now Reb Chanina ben Ogel went to Reb Tanchum ben Chanilai, and he asked him. Amalei. So he tells Reb Tanchum, "Mimenu lo shamaiti." I didn't hear from Yeshua ben Levi this answer. Alakach Amar li Shmuel bar Nochem Achi Imi shel Rav Acha b'Reb Chanina. What did he tell me? Hoyol v'soifon lehishtaber. Since the luchos harishonos are going to get broken, they did not want to put the word toiv in the first time. So what? Just because it's going to be broken, they didn't want to put the word toiv. So Amar Rashi says, if the Torah would have wrote toiv in the luchos that were broken, chos v'shalom, good would have been seized from amongst Klal Yisrael. Chas v'shalom. Amar Rabbi Yeshua says like this: Haraya tes b'chalemei. If somebody sees the letter tes in his dream, simin yafalei, this is a very good sign for him. So the Gemara asks, my time, what's so special about seeing a tes in your chalem? Ilema mishum d'ksiv toiv. If you're going to say because toiv starts with a tes. So now he asks Ema, let's look at Pasuk in Yeshaya. The Pasuk in Yeshaya says, V'tete seha b'ma'ate hashmeid, which that's referring to, literally it means, I will sweep him with the broom of destruction. Over there, he's speaking about that the Eibush is going to bring different Puranias. Hashem is going to destroy Bavel, like you sweep the house. He's going to destroy, he's going to destroy the enemies. And what do we see over there? Vetatea. It says test, and that means destruction. So the Gemara answers, Chad test kamrinon. When we said that somebody who sees a test in his dream, it's a good sign. That's if he sees one test. One test, that's we say is toiv. But for example, vetatea, which has two tesim, that's not a good sign. So now the Gemara asks, Ema, but let's look at the pasuk in Eicha. Tum asa b'shula. It says about the Yerushalayim sinning. So what does it say? Tum asa b'shula. That Hashem is going to clean out Yerushalayim from their sins. So it also uses the lashon of one test. So the Gemara says, test beis karminan. When he says that Haraya test b'chalei means when you see test and a beis. Toiv. You see a test and a beis together, then it's a siman yafa. So the Gemara says, Ema tovu ba'eretz shoda. We see by tovu ba'eretz shoda, we see test and beis, and it means to drown. So therefore the Gemara says this. Ella, rather, the reason why somebody who sees a test b'chaleim is a siman yafa is because haylo pasach be'akasav l'tevet tchila. Since the first test in Teda speaks about the first test is good. Like siv test, because from pasuk the first few psukim in the Teda Bereshis till pasuk Daled, it does not use the lashon of test. It doesn't use a test at all, and only then it says ki toiv. So since the first time in the Teda that it uses test speaks about good, so we say the test is a good thing, even though sometimes, like the Mefarshim explained, even though sometimes it denotes something which is not good. Another thing, somebody who sees his eulogy in his dream, they had rachmanas on him and they redeemed him. These words apply if he actually sees his eulogy written down. Now, the Mishnah says, if you remember yesterday, we brought down different halachas with behemoths. So we said these halachas, certain halachas apply by all the behemoths, and then it says the Isser Kilayim applies to also v'chein chaya v'oifek yetzaban. Now, so Amar Rish Lakish says like this. Kan Shana Rabbi. Here, Rabbi Danasi taught halacha from a Tosefta that teaches us the statement that birds and chaya and eif are also subject to the Isser of Kilayim. So Amar Rish Lakish Kan Shana Rabbi. Here, Rabbi taught Tarnagel, which means a Tarnagel, and Tavais Ufasyeni, which is like a peacock, and a type of another type of bird, Kilayim Zebazeh, are Kilayim with respect to each other. In other words, the halachas of Kilayim, you would think Kilayim only speaks to Behema, so he says Kilayim also refers when you take these two different types of birds together, so it's also Kilayim. Obviously, what's the chiddush here? So Amr Chaviva Mishum Deravu Bahadi Adodi, because they are like put together, which means they grow up together. So I would think that they grow up together, so it's all one species. Therefore, the Torah tells us no, it's different types of species, and they have the Isser of Kilayim together. Now, Omar Shmuel says, Aves v'aves habar, goose and wild goose, Kilayim zebaza, they are Kilayim with respect to each other. So Maskal Rav Chanan, my time, what's the reason? Ilim mishum dahai arach koya v'hai zuter koya. If you say because this beak has a long beak and the beak of one is short, elamata. So now the question is, gamla parsa v'gamla taya, with regard to a Persian camel and a Arabian camel, dahai alim koya v'hai katan koya, where the neck of this one is thick and the neck of that one is thin. Is this considered kilayim? Camels are in fact there are two variants of camels, but it's one species. So just because they have different features, but it's all one type of species. So Rabbi says like this: the reason why by the goose, the domestic goose and the wild goose, they're different is because zeh beitzim b'chutz. This one has beitzim, the testicles are visible from outside. And this one, the domesticated goose, its testicles are inside. Papa Amra hai to nechada be'isur b'shilcha. Where Papa says that the wild goose releases only one egg in its ovary and later releases another. Hai to nakama be'usa b'shilcha, and that one, the domestic goose, releases several eggs at once in its ovary. So not considered to be the same species. Amr Rish Lakish, he says, Hamar bi'esh neiminim shabiyam leike. A person who crossbreeds two species of creatures that live in the sea gets malchus for the Isser of Kilayim. My time, what's the reason? We learn Gzer Shava from Limineo. It says according to its species, referring to the animals on dry land, and it says Limineo referring to sea creatures. So just like there's Isser of crossbreeding of Kilayim by creatures, there's going to be an Isser in a Yam as well. With regards to a person who drives a wagon on the seashore with a goat and a shibuta. A shibuta is a certain species of fish together, pulled by the goat on the land and the fish at the sea. So the halacha is ma'u. What's the halacha? Is he over the isser of kilayim, working with kilayim, the same way that when one plows with an ox and a donkey working together? So l'cheda, over here also, even though it's an animal and it's a sea animal, so is there kilayim? So do I say, do we say like this? Since the goat does not go into the sea and the shibuta does not ascend onto the land, so you can't call them working together. So there's no isser of kilayim. Or perhaps, in any event, he's now driving the wagon with both of them, and now he's over the isser of kilayim. Interesting question. So Maskala Ravina says, if a person joined wheat and barley together in his hand, and he sowed the wheat in Eretz Yisrael and barley outside of Eretz Yisrael, where the isser of kilayim does not apply to seeds, is he chayiv? There are two distinct regions, and the seeds are not considered to be mixed together. So Amri, the Chacham said, how can you compare the two cases? There, the case of planting diverse kinds of seeds is specifically Eretz Yisrael, that is the location subject to the obligation. Whereas Eretz Yisrael is not a location subject to the obligation of kilayim. Hacha, here, in the case of the person driving the wagon, the land and the location, the sea, are locations that are subject to the obligation of kilayim. So if one works together, two different species, either on the land or the sea, he is chayiv. Therefore, the question is a valid question. So I wonder if that's the halacha. Right? Yeah, that's the halacha. That's what's brought down in Shulchan Aruch. And the Rambam says, where? The Rosh is machmer, yeah. The Rosh is machmer. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I said the Herchel, yeah, it's a Mesafik, he brings them from the Rambam, the Rosh, that Mesafik heard from the Chumra, v'asad l'hanig al yidei min echad sher b'yabash v'echad b'yom.
Yeah, why would it matter if
yeah.
If it's in the, one's on land, one's on
Right, the Rambam says it's osir, but if you did it, ain't like it. Yeah, okay. Hadin Allah shesh nagach es hapara. Okay, now we're going to begin. Guys, come do a chazara vakenis. All right, now we're going to begin a very famous perek, which brings everybody. It brings everybody back to cheder. Many people in 5th grade and 6th grade. We have some 6th graders here, 7th graders here. We're going to do a chazara now vakenis. And as well, we'll have in mind also if any of the even if you're not learning Daf Yomi every day. If you just want to use these recordings to do a chazara, learn with your son, you're welcome to, with B'simcha v'tuv levav. All right, hakenis. The Mishnah says like this: hakenis sein ladir. If a person brought a deer into his pen. Now, v'nol b'fanei karo, and he locked the door appropriately. He locked the door before it appropriately. And nebach v'yotza v'hezika. And now the sheep went out and caused damage to another person's field. How did it cause damage? Either by eating something or trampling on it. So what's the din? Potter. The owner is potter. The owner of the deer, or the owner of the tzayin, is potter from any of the damage that the tzayin damaged. Why? Because he locked it appropriately. However, if he did not lock the door before the sheep in an appropriate way, in an appropriate manner, and then v'yotzav is zika, and then the sheep went out and caused damage, so then chayiv, the owner is chayiv. Why? Because he's a pesheah. He did not safeguard the sheep. So that's the first din of the Mishnah. Hakenis, if somebody brings sheep into a pen, so if he locks it properly and then the sheep got out and damaged, so he's potter because, like Rashi says, what should he have done? But if... Yeah. But if he did not lock it properly and then it went ahead and the damage, the Mishnah says, chayiv, he's going to be chayiv. Next in. Nifratza balayla. Now here, we're talking about a case, the owner locked the door of the pen appropriately. But the wall of the pen was nifritza b'layla, it was breached at night. Either it was breached, there was an oines, or it was breached by the animals in there, or bandits now broke the wall. And now the sheep went out and caused damage by eating or trampling. So what's the din? The halacha is vaiter pater. The owner of the sheep is pater from any chiyuv. Why? Because the owner locked the sheep up properly. What happened? The wall fell down, or listim came in and broke the wall. The sheep got out and damaged. That's not on the owner. However, hoitziu listim. If robbers themselves took the sheep out of the pen and now started playing with the sheep, and the animals then caused damage. So then, in that din, listim chayavim, the bandits, the robbers are going to be chayiv.
They wouldn't be chayiv if they breached the wall and the animals just went out. Meaning the bowel of the animal.
Okay, we're gonna see in the Gemara all these chidushim. Hinicha Bava. Now here, the owner left the animal in the sun, causing the animal to suffer. Or the owner of the animal gave it to a cherish, a sheit or a katan, the yotzev ezika, and then what happened was, so he gave it to a cherish or a katan, which are not shaykh to guard. And the animal went out and caused damage, so then chayiv, the owner is chayiv because it was a pesheah. He left the animal in the sun. He shouldn't have left the animal in the sun. Or he gave it to a cherish or a katan, and then he's going to be chayiv. Misara l'reya, next in. If the owner gave the animal to a shepherd to care for, he says, I want you to watch, you're a shepherd, I want you to watch my sheep. So the halach is, nichnas areya tachtav, the shepherd enters in the place, and he's responsible for the damage. Nafal legina venenis, if the animal went and fell into a garden, and he derived benefit from produce there, Meshalemes mashin enes, the owner pays for the animal that it derived and not for other damage caused. Yarda kedarke ve'ezike, if the animal descended into the garden in its usual manner and caused damage there, Meshalemes masha ezike, its owner pays for what it damaged. So the Mishnah says, Kate said, how so? How does the Beis Din appraise the value of the damage when the owner pays for what it damaged? Shaman beisa ba'isa sada. So the Beis Din appraises, what do? They appraise a large piece of land with an area required for sowing one sa of seed in that field. In other words, including the garden bed in which the damage took place. Shaman beisa ba'isa sada, kama hoisa yafa v'kama yafa. So the Beis Din includes how much it was worth before the animal damage and how much it's worth now, and now the owner has to pay this difference. So the Beis Din appraises not only the garden bed that was eaten or trampled, so rather the depreciation and value of the bed as part of the surrounding area, which would come out that it's a smaller payment as the damage appears less significant in the context of the large area. Rav Shimon says like this: Ochla Peres Gemurim. This that we say that the Beis Din appraises applies only in the case where the animal ate unripe produce. So, ochla peres gemurim, but if it ate ripe produce, then mishalemes peres gemurim, the owner pays the value of the ripe produce. Im sa, if it ate a sa, then he has to pay a sa. Im sasayim, if it's a sasayim, then he has to pay a sasayim. That's what the Mishnah says. So, just Nachamol very quickly, somebody who brings in their tzayin into a pen and locks it properly, and it damages, so then he'll be pater. But if he did not damage it properly, then the halacha is, and it damaged, then the halacha is chayiv. If the wall breached at night, or listim came and the sheep got out, so then the owner will be pater. But if the listim were the ones who were playing with the sheep, so then, and the sheep damaged, then the listim will be chayiv. If he left it in the sun, or he gave it to a cher shetivikotan and it damaged, then he'll be chayiv because he was negligent. If he gives it to a shepherd, the shepherd now becomes fully responsible. If the sheep fell into a garden and had anah by there, so the owner has to pay whatever it had anah. If it fell kedarka and then it damaged, so it has to pay what it damaged, and the Mishnah gave examples. And then Rav Shimon says that's all by unripe, but if it's ripe, he has to pay what he ate. Okay, so now the Gemara says, Tanan Rabbanan. We learned in a brayso, Ezeu karo ve'ezer shelo karo. We said, Hakrenis tzein l'dir v'nolu f'nel karo. What does it mean, karo? So the Mishnah says, Delas shichel lamed b'ruach mitzuya. We're talking about if you lock the door in such a way that the door is able to withstand a typical wind, and the door doesn't collapse or open by the typical wind. Zeu karo. This is considered appropriate. Now, what does it mean? If it's unable to withstand a typical wind, so this is considered shalei karo. So now he says, who's the Tana who taught that with regards to an animal that are a mu'id, that it's sufficient for the owner to provide only a shmira pechusa, reduced safeguard. Now, the Mishnah deals with damage categorized as shein, eating, and regel, trampling. And we know when it comes to shein and regel, as we learned a few times, all animals are considered a mu'id. So what did our Mishnah say? Our Mishnah said that Akain is shein l'dir v'nol b'fenel karo v'yotzav v'zika is patur. Now, so the question is, who is the Tana who holds that we're talking about an animal which is a mu'id? The animal went out and damaged with shein v'regel. Yet, our Mishnah says that if it was no karo, which means that you safeguard it in a way that that you locked it properly, that it can stand a ruach mitzuya, that's considered a good shmira, which would mean that by a mu'id, even a shmira pchusa is okay, because our Mishnah says it's pater. So where it says, who's that Tana? Rabbi Yehudi. This is Rabbi Yehuda the Tanan. Rabbi Yehuda learns within the Mishnah, Ksharu ba'olav b'meisere v'nol l'fanav karo v'yatzev v'hizik echatam v'echad mu'id chayiv d'Reb Meir. Reb Meir says if the owner of an ox tied it with reins to a fence or locked it with a gate before appropriately, but nevertheless the ox went out and caused damage, whether the animal is a tam or a mu'id, he's going to be chayiv. Why? Because hastus, you didn't properly guard it. Review this is like this: tam by a tam, then he'll be chayiv, even if he safeguarded it appropriately. Why? Because the Torah does not limit shmira for a tam animal. But a mu'id, but in regards to a mu'id, he will be pater from payment. Why? Shneimar, as the pasuk says, "V'lo yishmerenu balav," and the owner has not secured it. V'shamar huzeh, and this ox that was tied by the reins was secured. Now, Rabbi Eliezer, remember we had this already. Ein l'shmir l'sakin. The only way to safeguard an ox is killing it. So, who, according to this Mishnah, only Rabbi Yehuda maintains that a shmira pechusa is sufficient to render exempt from the liability of an animal which is a mu'id. So the Gemara says, "Afilu temer meir." I could even tell you that our Mishnah is a meir. Shani shein v'regel, and he says that shein v'regel is different. Why? Da'atera mi'at mishmirasan. Over there, the Torah limited the safeguarding to them. He says that there are four manners in which the Torah limited the requirement standards of safeguarding, which are pit and fire, eating and trampling. And the Gemara says, the Torah says that if a man shall open a pit or a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or a donkey fell in it, so then the owner shall pay. So we can learn from here, haki so, but if he covered it, then pater, he's pater, even though it's possible that the pit would be uncovered in the future. Aish, the Torah says, the Torah limits the required standard of safeguarding with regard to the category of fire. Diksiv, shalom yishalom amaras abeda. The one who kindled the fire shall pay compensation, which is interpreted to mean that one is pater, ad the ovid kain maver, unless he acts in a manner that is similar to actively kindling the fire in another property by being a pesheah. Shein, the Torah limits by shein, the eating, the ksiv, ubir b'stei acher, and it fed in the field of another. Ad the ovid kain ubir, which teaches us that the owner does not bear a chiyuv unless he acts in a manner that is similar to causing his animal to feed there by being negligent. Regel, the Torah says, requires the shmir with regards to the category of trampling. The chsiv is shilach, as it says, and he set his animal loose. The ovid came v'shilach unless he acts in a manner that is similar to setting his animal loose. V'tanya, we learned in a brisa v'shilach, when it says v'shilach zeregel, this refers to trampling. That send forth the feet of the ox and the donkey. Beer, and what does it mean? Beer is ashen. This refers to eating. We have this already in Daf Beis and Daf Gimel, as one consumes the tooth until it will be all gone. The reason of the owner's liability is specifically that he acted in a way that is similar to setting the animal loose or cause it to feed, which we can learn of it. But if he did not act in such a manner, even if he provided a shmira pechusa, he's not chayiv. Amar Rabbi says, Masisa Nemidaika, you can see this precisely from our Mishnah. Diktani Tzayin. What did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah used the expression a sheep. Now, Michti B'Sher Kaskinan V'Asi, we're dealing with a share that went ahead and damaged. So Nisni share. Why does the Mishnah give the example of a share? Why give the example of a tzayin? So where it says Ma'ishna Diktani Tzayin, so why does the Mishnah give the example of a sheep? La Mishum Da'Tera Miyata B'Shmerase. Is it not because the Torah limited its requirement specifically to guard it against damage that is more likely to be caused by sheep? In other words, caused by shein and regel, since sheep are unlikely to gore. If so, the wording of the Mishnah is according to the opinion of a mayor who holds that that the shmira pechusa is sufficient only with regards to shein and regel, but not by goring. The Gemara says lav. No, shum the kan keren like sibe. He says that's not so. It's because goring is not written. Shein v'regel hudek sibe. It's only shen v'regel. The Kamash Malon, the shen v'regel, it teaches us that shen v'regel is the mu'adin hein. So the Gemara says, Shema Mina, you're taka right. The Gemara concludes that this is the reading of the Mishnah, and you can learn from here that the Mishnah may even be in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir. All right, tomorrow we'll continue by Tanya.